Welcome to another Summer Class Pass project. I'm excited to bring you the Gemini Quilt. That is the project that is here behind me and what we'll be working on today. So our sample was made using Michael Miller hash dots. We made it with the intent of giving it for kids or maybe newborn babies. So we wanted the colors to be gender neutral. However, it's bright and fun and anybody would love it. We're actually going to be making ours out of a strip set today from Batik Textiles called Safari. It'll be really fun, and we're going to use a black background. This is something that can be made any way you want. You can use 2.5-inch strip sets that you have laying around, or you can even grab just fabric right out of your stash. So this can be made to suit anybody's needs. Our focus today is going to be on chain piecing. This is a project that is really easy to do and really fast, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite tools and some of my chain piecing techniques. So let's take a minute and let's look at what all of our supplies are. All right, so what you'll see is we've got our pattern, obviously rotary cutter and a ruler. I've already done the pre-cut for this project. We're gonna make 4 blocks during this video. So I just picked some strips from the Safari Batik strip set from Batik Textiles. So I'm gonna go ahead and set the rest of my strips to the side. Now it takes 22.5-inch strips, and most strip sets are 40 or 42. For every 10 strips that you use, you'll need a yard of background fabric. So if you want to make this larger, you guys just know for every 10 additional strips that you use, you are going to need an extra yard of background. So if I was using this whole strip set, I would be using 4 yards of background instead of 2 yards of background. All right, so I've pre-cut my background squares and then my accent pieces. I'm going to call them background or accent pieces probably throughout. This will be for our final assembly. And then I've taken and I've cut the pieces from the strips. Now you're going to get, from every strip you use, you'll get 2 blocks out of it. All right, so that's the colored blocks from the quilt. Straight pins, my favorite mini iron. And I'm going to tell you, if you guys haven't seen this before, I use the bow and glue pin, not glue stick, a glue pin, quite often when I'm chain piecing, and we'll talk about that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just set these over here to the side. Often when I need to do samples and I'm doing a lot of chain piecing, I like to get as many things ready for the sewing machine that I can. So I use a glue pin instead of straight pins most of the time. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to put within the seam allowance, I'm going to put a little dab of glue. And let me zoom in just a little bit. So what I do is I put a little dab of glue, and then I'm going to line this up exactly where I need it to go. And then I am going to move on to my next piece. So I'm going to actually set the longer strips to the side. I'm going to take my next piece here. I'm going to lay it down, and I am going to just put this piece here. It's going to have a nice little, I'm going to hold it in place with that glue pin. I'll grab my next piece. I'm using my glue pin, and that is going to be within my seam allowance. So I'm not gluing outside of my seam allowance, and I'm putting just enough to hold it. So we'll move on and we'll get to our last piece. I told you we're going to work on 4 blocks. Now, one thing that you're going to notice is we're going to be putting another piece over here. And this is where normally we have been taught to go ahead, and we've been taught to sew this side and press it, and then we move, and then we'll come back and we'll add the other side. For me, as I work on samples, I need things to go as fast as possible. And because I have the room for the seam allowance, I'm actually going to go ahead and add the second piece onto this. So I'm going to go ahead and add this piece here. I'm going to bring this down. Little dab of glue. And I'm going to continue on until I have all my pieces ready. Now, sometimes I will work on these at night and I may not get ready to, I may not be ready to sew, but I'll go ahead and prepare fabric so that maybe when I get home from the shop and I need to sew, I have things ready to go. And then I don't have to worry about a bunch of pins. I can do this sitting in front of the TV, and I have things ready and set. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to do the first set of sewing. What we'll do is we're going to sew 1/4 inch on all of these. We're going to flip it and then we're going to sew 1/4 inch on all of those. Okay, so you guys saw how easy that was to do. So once again, I'm just working on 4 blocks. So I'm very quickly just going to clip these apart. And we're going to be pressing out. So I'm going to take this here and I'm going to heat set it, open it up, and press it. Then I can flip it around, open it up, and press it. All right, so you guys saw how quickly we got those pieces done. Now, if I was making the whole quilt today, I would have done this on every piece. I would have added both sides, and then I would have gone over and sewn and then continued on. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing over here. So we're going to chain piece away, and we're going to start. Once again, I put a dab of glue. I grab my piece. I line it up, and I just push it right on down, and it's going to stay right in place. Now, if I want to be really efficient, I'll just sit here and I will just flip it over. I will add the second piece. You cannot always do this. We're able to do it because we have more than 1/4 inch seam allowance that is left. All right? So there is that piece. We'll set it to the side, and we're going to just continue to quickly add on all of our next pieces. All right, back at the sewing machine, we're going to go right back into chain piecing and getting this all ready to put on our background pieces and finish this these blocks right up. Okay, so back over here to press, I'm going to just do the same thing. I'm going to hit that with the iron. And I'm going to press that open. Okay, so I have the 4 blocks that the 4 starter blocks to go ahead and finish this up. So what we're going to do is we're going to be adding on sashing to these, all right? And it's going to be really simple. We're going to be adding on a piece here and a piece here. So by now you guys know what my routine is. We are going to very simply glue everything in place, and we're going to go do a final set of chain piecing. So let's go ahead and get those ready to go to the machine. Okay, so let's go ahead and add on our last pieces to the blocks that we made so that we can assemble a full block, and we'll be ready to go. All right, so we're back at the pressing table, and we're going to quickly press the two pieces that we just added. Once again, and we're pressing to the accent or background. It's called background. It just looks like an accent to me. That's why I keep saying it that way. But it is your background. All right, so there we go. We have our blocks. Now here's how simple the actual block assembly is. So let me just take a quick look here. So we're going to go ahead, we'll go ahead and put these together, and then we'll put these two together. All right, so what we have here is you have a block and a block. And this, or a unit, I should say, a unit and a unit. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to put these together, all right? And we're going to sew them, and then that makes the square. So if you look here, this is the square. So this would be this unit here, and then this one would be this unit here, all right? When I do these, I typically don't glue at this point. So this is when I would actually come in and pin. So I will put a pin on both ends. What you guys will love is that you do not have, there's nothing to match here. Okay, which is really nice. However, I do take and put a pin right here to hold this seam down, and then I will find where the bottom seam is, and I'll go ahead and put just one extra pin in there. All right, so then we have this block. Which is going to go just like this. I'm going to flip that down. We'll pin it. There was a seam right there, so I'm actually just going to pin that guy down. And then I've got one more here I'm going to pin. We're going to go sew these, and then our blocks are ready. So I will use glue when I'm doing a whole lot of small, quick piecing where there's a whole lot of it. But when I get into the longer seams, I will still sometimes use it, but in this instance, it's just the same to pin. And I want to pin some of my seams to make sure that they're not flipping under on my feet. Last two seams. Okay, so I've taken the pins out. We're going to do one last quick press here. So I'm going to set that seam. I always open it up with my fingers, make sure that everything's laying right. And then I press that final seam. Let that iron, the heat of the iron, do the work for you. Press. Don't iron. And there we have two blocks. Now, let's take a look back at the quilt. So on the quilt, you're going to see, and you'll see on the front of the pattern that there are two pattern layouts. So we laid our sample out looking like this, and the blocks, as you can see, how they turn. So when you look on your pattern, you're going to see the way we did it, which is the white version on here, and then the black version shows the other layout. So once you've made all your blocks, just lay it out. Now, if you want to do the other layout, so you would put them this way, and you're actually going to be making chains. So you'll have chains that will be going down. I forgot there's a quilt on here, so I actually have to put a pin. Doesn't just stick to my design wall like normal. So you'll see how this is making a chain and how they touch. So then this one would go here. So as you can see, that would be your other option for layout. Would be to do it so they go they kind of go and follow there. What I'm going to do is actually pull this one up here so that you can see them. And then that would give you a whole different look on the quilt. It's amazing to me how the black gives it another look. We loved the Riley white that we used for the background of this. It just gave it a very fun, bright yet soft look. This is a very bold look, so any way you want to do it will work. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you picked up a couple of tips or tricks when it comes to chain piecing. I'm looking forward for the next class that you guys are going to see. Thank you again for being part of Summer Class Pass, and we'll see you tomorrow.